The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm orange glow over the busy streets of the small town. Liam, a 12-year-old boy with untamed curls and a backpack almost as big as him, weaved through the bustling crowd on his way home from school. The aroma of fresh bread from a nearby bakery mixed with the metallic tang of the city, but Liam barely noticed. His mind was preoccupied with thoughts of the math test he'd struggled with that morning. As he waited at a crosswalk, the blaring honk of a car jolted him out of his thoughts. Ahead, in the middle of the intersection, an elderly man had fallen, his cane rolling away as cars screeched to a halt around him. People on the sidewalk froze, unsure of what to do, some pulling out their phones to record instead of help. Liam's heart raced. Without thinking, he dropped his backpack and darted into the street. The man's frail frame shook as he tried to push himself up, his face pale with fear and effort. "Sir, I've got you," Liam said, crouching beside him. The man's watery blue eyes met Liam's, and he nodded weakly. "Thank you, son," he whispered, his voice trembling. Liam wrapped his arms under the man's shoulders, bracing himself against the weight. The cars idled, their drivers watching with a mix of impatience and curiosity. Slowly but surely, Liam helped the man to his feet, retrieving the cane and guiding him to the sidewalk. "Are you hurt?" Liam asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The man shook his head, though his breathing was labored. "Just shaken." You're a brave young man." Before Liam could respond, a woman approached them. "I've called an ambulance," she said. "They should be here soon." Liam nodded, staying by the man's side until the paramedics arrived. As they loaded the man onto a stretcher, he reached out and grabbed Liam's hand. "What's your name, son?" "Liam," he replied. The man's grip tightened slightly. "Liam, thank you. I won't forget this." The walk home felt surreal. Liam replayed the event in his mind, wondering what might have happened if he hadn't stepped in. His mother was waiting on the porch when he arrived, her hands on her hips. "Liam, you're late." "I was starting to worry," she said, her tone stern but laced with concern. "Sorry, Mom," Liam said, setting down his backpack. "There was this man, and he fell in the street." Her expression softened as he recounted the story. When he finished, she pulled him into a hug. "You did a good thing, Liam. But you need to be careful. Running into traffic like that, it's dangerous." "I couldn't just stand there," he said simply. His mother smiled, ruffling his hair. "That's your father's bravery showing. He'd be proud." Liam felt a pang of emotion at the mention of his father, who had passed away when he was little. He nodded, his chest swelling with a mix of pride and longing. That night, as Liam lay in bed, he stared at the ceiling, unable to shake the old man's face from his mind. There was something in his eyes, a mixture of gratitude and something else, something Liam couldn't quite place. He finally drifted off to sleep, unaware that this was just the beginning of a journey that would change his life forever. The morning after the rescue felt like any other. Liam woke to the aroma of his mother's pancakes and the faint hum of the news playing on the kitchen radio. He shuffled into the kitchen, still groggy, and found his mother humming softly as she flipped pancakes on the stove. "Morning, sleepyhead," she greeted, glancing over her shoulder. Liam yawned. "Morning, Mom." As he sat down, the memory of the previous day flashed through his mind. The old man's pale face, the trembling hands, and the look in his eyes. It still felt surreal. "Any news about the man I helped?" Liam asked, picking at his plate. His mother shook her head. "Nothing on the news. But I'm sure he's okay. You did a brave thing, Liam." Liam nodded, though a part of him wished he could check on the man himself. He was about to ask if they could call the hospital when the sound of tires crunching on gravel outside caught their attention. "Who could that be?" his mother murmured, wiping her hands on a towel and heading to the door. Liam followed, peeking around her as she opened it. A sleek black car was parked in their driveway, its polished surface gleaming in the morning sun. A man in a sharp suit stepped out, his presence immediately commanding attention. But it wasn't the man that caught Liam's eye. It was the passenger stepping out of the car's back seat. That's him, Liam whispered, his eyes widening. The old man from the street stood before them, looking much healthier. His posture was straight, his face calm, and his eyes twinkled with warmth. He leaned slightly on his cane but walked with surprising steadiness. Mrs. Carter? The man in the suit addressed Liam's mother, extending a business card. I'm Mr. Grant, an associate of Mr. Howard. May we come in? Liam's mother hesitated, glancing between the man and Mr. Howard. Finally, she stepped aside. Of course. Please come in. The four of them sat in the living room, Liam perched on the edge of his seat as Mr. Howard spoke. Liam, I don't think words can express my gratitude for what you did yesterday. Mr. Howard began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. If it weren't for your bravery, I'm not sure I'd be here right now. I just did what anyone would do, Liam said, his cheeks flushing. Mr. Howard chuckled. Modest, too. But no, Liam. Many people stood by and did nothing. You were the only one who acted. That's rare, and it deserves to be acknowledged. Liam's mother cleared her throat, her skepticism clear. It's kind of you to say, Mr. Howard, but why are you here? Surely a thank you would have sufficed. Mr. Howard's expression softened. Because what Liam did was more than a simple act of kindness. It was an act of courage. And courage deserves to be rewarded. He gestured to Mr. Grant, who reached into a leather briefcase and pulled out a small, ornate wooden box. The carvings on the box's surface were intricate, almost hypnotic, and the wood glowed faintly in the sunlight. This is for you, Liam, Mr. Howard said, handing the box to him. Liam took it carefully, his hands trembling slightly. What is it? A gift, Mr. Howard replied cryptically. One that I hope will help you as much as you helped me. Liam's mother frowned, her protective instincts flaring. What kind of gift? Mr. Howard smiled. Open it when you're ready. And don't worry, Mrs. Carter. There's no catch. Just a token of gratitude. As the black car drove away, the ornate box sat on the coffee table, its presence almost magnetic. Liam's mother eyed it warily. Liam, don't open it yet. We don't know what it is. Liam nodded, but his gaze lingered on the box. Curiosity burned inside him. What could be inside? And why did it feel like this was only the beginning of something much bigger? That night, Liam couldn't stop staring at the ornate wooden box. It sat on his desk, glowing faintly in the moonlight that filtered through his bedroom window. The intricate carvings on its surface seemed to shift and dance when he looked at them too long, as though they held secrets just out of reach. His mother's warning echoed in his mind. Don't open it yet. We don't know what it is. But curiosity burned inside him, growing stronger with every passing moment. Finally, unable to resist, Liam sat down at his desk and reached for the box. His fingers brushed the cool, smooth surface as he hesitated. What if opening it changed everything? What if it unleashed something he couldn't control? With a deep breath, he lifted the lid. Inside was a small, intricately designed compass. Its brass casing was polished to a mirror-like sheen, and its needle glowed faintly blue. The compass wasn't pointing north. Instead, the needle spun lazily before settling on a direction that felt oddly specific, as though it were calling to him. As Liam picked it up, a strange warmth spread through his hand. The room seemed to fade away, and his vision blurred. Suddenly, he was no longer in his bedroom. He stood in a lush forest, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Towering trees stretched into the sky, their canopies forming a shimmering green roof. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the moss-covered ground. Liam's heart raced as he turned in a circle, trying to make sense of his surroundings. The compass in his hand glowed brighter, its needle pointing deeper into the forest. "What is this place?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the soft rustle of leaves. As if in response, a gentle breeze swept through the trees, carrying with it a faint whisper. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was soothing, almost encouraging. It felt like the forest itself was guiding him. Liam took a hesitant step forward, then another. The compass needle remained steady, pulling him further into the woods. The path ahead was lined with strange, luminous flowers that pulsed with a faint inner light. He felt both awed and unnerved, as though he were treading on sacred ground. Just as suddenly as it began, the vision ended. Liam was back in his bedroom, the compass still glowing faintly in his hand. His heart pounded as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. Was that real? He muttered to himself. He placed the compass back in the box and closed the lid, his mind racing. Whatever this was, it was no ordinary gift. Mr. Howard had called it a token of gratitude, but Liam was starting to suspect it was something much more significant. The next morning, Liam woke with a renewed sense of purpose. The compass's direction had been clear, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to follow it. But how could he explain that to his mother? Over breakfast, he decided to test the waters. "Mom, what do you think of Mr. Howard? Do you think he's trustworthy?" She looked up from her coffee, her expression thoughtful. "He seems genuine, but it's hard to say." "Why do you ask?" Liam hesitated, then shook his head. "No reason. Just curious." His mother gave him a long look but didn't press further. After school, Liam grabbed his backpack and the box, telling his mom he was going to the park. She nodded absent-mindedly, engrossed in a phone call, and Liam felt a pang of guilt for not being completely honest. But he needed to figure out what the compass was pointing to, and he couldn't do that from his bedroom. At the park, he opened the box and held the compass in his hand. Once again, the needle spun before locking onto a direction. With a deep breath, Liam started walking, following the path it set. The compass led him to the edge of the park, where an overgrown trail wound into the woods. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped onto the path. Each step felt like stepping into the unknown, but something inside him urged him forward. As the trees closed in around him, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. But whether it was by something dangerous or protective, he couldn't yet tell. The forest trail twisted and turned, growing darker as Liam ventured deeper. The compass glowed faintly in his hand, its needle unwavering as it pointed forward. The deeper he went, the quieter the world became. The sounds of distant cars and birds faded, replaced by an eerie stillness that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. After what felt like hours, Liam stumbled into a clearing. At its center was a stone bench covered in moss, its surface engraved with swirling patterns that mirrored those on the compass. Around the bench, strange plants with glowing petals pulsed gently, their light illuminating the clearing like a halo. Liam approached cautiously, his heart pounding. As he reached out to touch the bench, a voice startled him. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Liam spun around, clutching the compass tightly. Standing at the edge of the clearing was a boy about his age, with dark hair and a confident smirk. He held a notebook and a small flashlight, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "Who are you?" Liam asked, taking a step back. "Name's Oliver," the boy replied, stepping into the light. "Been following the same trail you have. Looks like we're after the same thing." Liam frowned. "I'm not after anything. I'm just trying to figure out what this compass is pointing to." Oliver raised an eyebrow, his smirk widening. "So you've got one too, huh?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a compass nearly identical to Liam's, its needle glowing faintly. Liam's eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" "Let's just say someone thought I had potential," Oliver said cryptically. "Same as you, I'd bet. But this isn't a treasure hunt, in case you're wondering. It's a test." "A test for what?" "Guess we'll find out together," Oliver said, nodding toward the bench. The engravings matched the ones on the compass. "I think they're clues. But there's no way I'm solving this on my own. So what do you say? Truce?" Liam hesitated, his instincts telling him not to trust Oliver entirely. But he couldn't deny that having someone else to help decode the mystery might make things easier. Reluctantly, he nodded. "All right. Truce." Together, they examined the bench. The engravings formed a series of interconnected symbols, some of which glowed faintly under the light of the glowing plants. "Looks like a map," Oliver muttered, tracing the lines with his finger. See this here? It's pointing to another location. We're supposed to follow it. Liam studied the symbols, feeling a strange sense of familiarity. It's not just a map. It's a riddle. Oliver shot him a curious glance. A riddle? Liam nodded, pointing to a series of symbols that resembled words. Only those who listen will hear. Only those who look will see. Great, Oliver said dryly. A poetic puzzle. Just what we needed. It's not that hard, Liam said, thinking aloud. The compass listens, and we're supposed to follow its direction. But we also have to pay attention to what's around us. Oliver crossed his arms. All right, genius. Lead the way. As they followed the compass deeper into the forest, the air grew colder, and the trees seemed to close in around them. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, though he couldn't see or hear anyone else. Suddenly, the compass needle began spinning wildly. The faint glow of the plants flickered, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. What's happening? Liam shouted over the growing noise. Stay calm, Oliver yelled back. It's another test. Before Liam could respond, the ground gave way, and they both tumbled into darkness. They landed with a thud in what appeared to be an underground chamber. The walls glowed faintly, revealing a series of symbols similar to those on the bench. Looks like we've got more puzzles to solve, Oliver said, brushing dirt off his jacket. Despite the situation, his smirk remained intact. Liam groaned, picking himself up. Let's just hope this doesn't get us killed. As they began deciphering the symbols on the chamber walls, Liam realized one thing. Whatever this test was, it was far from over. The underground chamber was vast, its walls carved with intricate symbols that glowed softly in the dim light. Liam and Oliver stood in the center, their breaths echoing faintly as they took in their surroundings. The air was thick, cool, and tinged with the earthy scent of stone and moss. All right, Oliver said, breaking the silence. What do you make of this? Liam studied the carvings, the symbols familiar yet indecipherable. They seemed to form a story, a sequence of events, but the meaning was just out of reach. It's another riddle, Liam said, pointing to a line of glowing characters. Look, these ones are brighter. Maybe they're the key. Oliver raised an eyebrow, his skepticism clear. Or maybe they're a trap. You go first. Liam shot him a glare but stepped closer to the symbols. As he reached out, the glow intensified, and the ground beneath them shifted. The carvings rearranged themselves, forming a series of geometric patterns that pulsed with light. Great, Oliver muttered. Now what? A deep, resonant voice filled the chamber, startling them both. Only those with true intent shall proceed. Prove your worth by solving the trial of character. Liam and Oliver exchanged uneasy glances. Before they could react, the patterns on the walls shifted again, creating 3 glowing doorways, each marked with a different symbol. A triangle, a circle, and a square, Liam murmured. What do you think they mean? No idea, Oliver admitted. But we probably don't have all day to figure it out. Liam's compass buzzed faintly in his pocket, its glow intensifying. He pulled it out, watching as its needle pointed to the doorway marked with the circle. The compass is guiding us again, Liam said. It's pointing to that one. Fine, Oliver said with a shrug. Let's hope it knows what it's doing. They stepped through the circular doorway, finding themselves in a smaller chamber filled with puzzles. Stone tiles covered the floor, each etched with different symbols. On the far wall, an inscription glowed faintly. The path forward is built on trust. Oliver frowned. Trust? What does that mean? Maybe we have to work together, Liam suggested. Look at the tiles. Some of them match the symbols on the compass. He crouched down, pointing to a tile with a glowing triangle. I think we're supposed to step on these in the right order. And if we're wrong? Oliver asked, his tone wary. Liam didn't answer. Instead, he placed his foot on the first tile. It lit up, and a soft chime echoed through the room. Encouraged, he stepped onto the next one. Another chime. Looks like you're on to something, Oliver said. What's next? It's your turn, Liam said, holding out the compass. You figure out the next step. Oliver hesitated, then took the compass. He studied the tiles carefully before stepping onto one with a square symbol. The chime rang out again, and the next tile lit up. The pattern continued, with Liam and Oliver alternating steps. Each success brought a sense of relief, but the tension between them remained palpable. When they finally reached the other side, the wall ahead of them shimmered and dissolved, revealing another passage. Not bad, Oliver said grudgingly. You're not as useless as I thought. Liam rolled his eyes but couldn't hide a small smile. Thanks, I guess. The passage led to another chamber, smaller and simpler than the last. At its center was a pedestal with a glowing journal resting on top. Liam approached it cautiously, flipping it open to reveal pages filled with cryptic entries. The compass chooses those with true intent, he read aloud. Their journey is a test, their character the key. Only by working together can the path be revealed. Oliver leaned over his shoulder, his expression serious for once. So this isn't just about us. It's about proving we can work together. Liam nodded, closing the journal. I think we passed this part. But there's more to come. As they exited the chamber, both boys felt a newfound respect for one another. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, they felt like they might actually stand a chance, together. The air in the forest felt lighter as Liam and Oliver emerged from the chamber, their steps steady but their minds racing. The journal's cryptic message lingered in their thoughts. The compass chooses those with true intent. They exchanged a glance, an unspoken agreement forming between them. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The compass in Liam's hand began to glow brighter, its needle pointing to a narrow trail winding through the trees. Without a word, they followed its lead, the forest growing denser with each step. The path ended at a towering oak tree, its gnarled roots forming a natural archway. This has to be it, Liam said, his voice barely above a whisper. Oliver nodded, his usual bravado replaced by quiet determination. They stepped through the archway and found themselves in a clearing unlike anything they had seen before. The ground was covered in soft, luminous moss, and a small, crystal-clear pool reflected the starry sky above, even though it was still daytime. At the center of the pool stood Mr. Howard, his figure calm and composed. His cane was gone, and his posture was straighter, almost regal. He turned to face them, a warm smile spreading across his face. You've done well to make it here, he said, his voice resonating with a deep, soothing timbre. But your journey isn't over yet. Liam stepped forward, the compass glowing fiercely in his hand. What is this place? Why did you choose us? Mr. Howard gestured to the pool, its surface rippling gently. This is the sanctuary, he explained. A place that exists beyond the physical world, protected by those who are pure of heart and strong of spirit. The compass brought you here because it sensed your potential. Oliver crossed his arms, his skepticism re-emerging. Potential for what? We're just kids. Mr. Howard's gaze softened. Perhaps. But even the smallest act of courage can ripple outward, creating change in ways you cannot yet imagine. You've proven yourselves through the trials. Now, the choice is yours. Liam frowned. What choice? Mr. Howard stepped aside, revealing two pedestals behind him. On one sat a golden key, its surface engraved with intricate patterns that matched the compass. On the other was a small, glowing orb that pulsed with a soft, white light. The key represents responsibility, Mr. Howard explained. Taking it means dedicating yourself to protecting the sanctuary and its secrets. The orb represents freedom. Choosing it means walking away, free to live your life as you wish, with no further obligations. Oliver's eyes darted between the two objects. That's it. We just pick one? Mr. Howard nodded. The choice must come from within. There is no right or wrong answer. Liam's heart pounded as he stared at the pedestals. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. He thought about the trials, the teamwork, and the trust he had built with Oliver. He thought about the responsibility of protecting something as profound as the sanctuary. I'll take the key, Liam said, stepping forward. Oliver's head snapped toward him. You're sure about this? Liam nodded. If I've learned anything from this journey, it's that some things are worth protecting. Even if it's hard. Oliver hesitated, then sighed. Fine. Then I'll take the orb. Someone needs to make sure the rest of the world doesn't go to pieces while you're here. Mr. Howard chuckled softly. A wise choice, both of you. Balance is essential. As they each picked up their chosen object, a brilliant light enveloped the clearing. When it faded, Liam found himself back in his bedroom, the golden key in his hand. The compass lay beside him, its glow dim but steady. He felt a profound sense of purpose, as though a new chapter of his life had just begun. The next morning, Liam and Oliver met at the edge of the park, their expressions somber but determined. Guess this is where our paths split, Oliver said, holding the orb in his hand. But don't think you're getting rid of me that easily. I'll be back to check on you. Liam smiled. I'll be here. And who knows? Maybe we'll cross paths again sooner than we think. As they parted ways, Liam felt the weight of the key in his pocket. The journey had changed him, and he knew his responsibilities were only beginning. But for the first time in his life, he felt ready to face whatever came next.